You have to know the two types of trusts that are out there and how you can use Medicaid planning with those trusts. And the two types of trusts are the revocable trust with an REV and irrevocable trust with an IRR. And I'm going to try to explain the difference between the two, and I hope that it sticks, because the names are very close and they're a little bit difficult to understand. The revocable trust with an REV, that's a type of trust you can change. That's a changeable trust. So a revocable trust, you sign the trust, you walk out of the office, and 10 days later you decide, oh, you know what? I want to change everything that says. I don't like the way that was written. You can. It's revocable. It's changeable. Irrevocable trust, that's a type of trust that you cannot change. Okay? You sign an irrevocable trust, and then 10 days later you decide, you know what? I want to change who my beneficiaries are. Well, you can't. It's irrevocable. It can't be changed. So those are very basically the difference between the two types of trust. So with the revocable trust, I first want to focus on that. That's the changeable trust. And I want to tell you a little bit about how that works. The revocable trust, there are three parties to a trust, as Attorney Longton went over. The trustors, they put the assets in. The trustees manage the trust property. The beneficiaries get the benefit of the trust property. In a revocable trust, you can occupy all three positions during your lifetime and while you have capacity. You are the trustor, you are the trustee who controls the property, and you are the beneficiary. The other type of trust, the irrevocable trust, is probably the most popular Medicaid planning tool. The way the irrevocable trust works is you take all of your assets, you put it into an irrevocable trust. After the 5-year look-back period has gone by, it's like you never owned them. Okay? So you probably can become eligible for Medicaid if you have enough assets in the trust and you don't have many outside of the trust. It's a very, very powerful tool. So you might be thinking to yourself, well, of course I want to do that. Why wouldn't I do that? Well, before you make the decision to jump into an irrevocable trust, you need to know how that trust works. The first thing you should know is who the three parties of the irrevocable trust are. We talked about the revocable trust. All three can be you. The irrevocable trust, the trustors, that would be you. The trustee in Massachusetts, you can be your own trustee of your own irrevocable trust. Sometimes we suggest, if you can, you name someone else, but you can be the trustee of your own irrevocable trust. Does anyone know who the beneficiary of an irrevocable trust would be for Medicaid? Could be. The only real answer that matters is not you. You cannot be the beneficiary of your own irrevocable trust. If you're the beneficiary of your own irrevocable trust and you go into the nursing home and you apply for Medicaid benefits, they're just going to count everything in the trust as yours. So what does that mean? That means that you don't get the benefit of the assets that are in your trust. What that means is, if you put $100,000 into an irrevocable trust and a couple months later you decide you want to take $10,000 out to go on a trip, you can't. You're not the beneficiary. You need to name someone else as the beneficiary. And usually it's a child or a family member. And so the way it would work to get assets out of an irrevocable trust after you formed it would be, if you wanted $10,000, you would, as trustee, you would have to write a check to the beneficiary. That beneficiary would have to take the $10,000 check, deposit it into the personal bank account, and then go and write a check from them to you personally for $10,000 as a gift, you see, because they're the beneficiary, not you. So the only way to get it out is to go through them and for them to give it back to you. They don't have to, but that's the way it would have to work. And so some of our clients, even though you lose some control there, some of our clients say, well, that's okay, because I completely trust my son or daughter. I'm not concerned about whether they're going to give it back, right? And so that's great. Then that means you're a great candidate for the irrevocable trust. That means that you can put your assets in and 5 years later, they'll be protected for the nursing home. But there's another aspect that you need to really have your eyes open to, and that's taxes. Because what happens is when you form an irrevocable trust, sometimes the assets that you want to put into the irrevocable trust could cause a big income tax liability that you're not prepared to pay right now, today. So you need to really understand all the different aspects that are involved before jumping into an irrevocable trust. Even though it's a tremendous tool that can likely protect a lot, if not all of your assets, you got to know what the tax impact is, and you got to know that you're going to give up some control. So that's planning with the irrevocable trust. But that's not the only way, okay? The other way is Medicaid planning with a revocable trust. That's the type of trust that you can change. And before I talk about that in depth, I first want you to understand that I am not saying that you can put your assets into a revocable trust, the type of trust that you can change, and then 5 years later, it's like you never own them and you can go into the nursing home. I'm not saying that. So I don't want anyone to say that I said that, or else I'm going to be just like those people at the beginning I said who are spreading disinformation. What I'm saying is that the revocable trust can be a tremendous Medicaid planning tool. And to understand that, you have to understand that at what's called a point of crisis, right when someone's about to enter the nursing home, there are a lot of Medicaid planning strategies available at that time to protect some, if not all, of the assets at that time, at a point of crisis, without needing the 5-year look-back period. But in order to use those tools that are available under the law, you have to have documents in place empowering someone to do the planning on your behalf. Because if you're just about to enter the nursing home, what's the likelihood that you're going to be able to sign documents, that you're going to be able to be a part of the Medicaid planning process at that time? So you need a revocable trust, the right kind of revocable trust, in place that gives someone the power to do Medicaid planning on your behalf so that they can take advantage of all those tools and strategies that are available at a point of crisis to protect some, if not all, of the assets.